And of course, we're just gonna do this with the sun, aren't we? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Inked Reader. I'm gonna be in and out of the sunshine until it goes down. Welcome back to my channel. Today I just wanted to sit down and do a bit of wrap up of the summer season because it's over. And before I immerse myself completely in fall, I like to sit down and do a kind of like highlight of the season. What I've read that I particularly enjoyed, what I watched that I particularly enjoyed, or maybe not so much. And yeah, that's what this video is, just a wrap up of things I've engaged with during the summer. Now, honestly, summer 2024, and of course there are kids outside screaming. Now, summer 2024 has been a bit of a shitstorm, personally, for me. So I really, though, cherish the time of sitting down and writing down things I actually enjoyed during summer, because when bad things happen, right, they tend to take over and you forget about all the positive things that you also had. And so it's an exercise that helped me realizing that there were things during the summer that I did really enjoy, media that I really enjoyed engaging with, or cool books I've read. And I was also sofa ridden for a whole week, and so I binge watched 4 seasons of TV shows, which we're going to talk about. So in a sense, I can never binge watch TV shows these days, so I had to get very sick in order to do so, but then me getting sick allowed me to do so. So, you know, looking at the glass half full, as someone would say. Let's start with something fleshy, something nice to look at, which is probably the best book that I received in terms of aesthetics. I've not opened up the Broken Binding, the Green Bone saga yet, because I'm waiting for the last one to come through the post and then do my monthly unboxing, so those are not included. But thinking back about the most beautiful book I received in subscription boxes in the last 3 months or during the summer, I will probably have to go with these, because I'm gonna try and get the light where it's best. I've unboxed these, I'm gonna link it down below. I'm not gonna spend too much time because I don't want this video to become too long. However, can we appreciate this Fairloot edition? And I love the pearl, look at this. I particularly love this detail. Let me see if the sunshine is even better, but probably not. Better in the shades. I love these details. It looks stunning on my shelf. And this is A Letter to the Luminous Deep, which is a book that I don't know where I'm gonna get around to read. I purely purchased this for aesthetic reasons, which is not something I would necessarily say it's the best thing to do, but I just couldn't pass on these pages. So yeah, I must say this is probably the best book I've received in terms of aesthetics. And yeah, I'm just gonna insert the unboxing down below, but I just wanted to also highlight a good looking book, because, you know, we can appreciate a good looking book. Now, going from an aesthetic book, the best book I've received aesthetic wise, let's talk about the books that I actually enjoyed the most during the summer. There was another one initially I thought about putting on this list, but I'm gonna save it because it's gonna be my September wrap up, and September somehow I struggle to say as summer, I don't know why. So I will mention 3 though. Let's start with the more light-hearted one that I really enjoyed throughout the summer, and really popped up in my mind every time I thought about what I had enjoyed throughout the summer book-wise, and that's Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This is my other Fairloot edition, and it's a second book in a series. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy or something more. And it's a fantasy where you follow Emily. Emily, she researches fairies. They are real in this world, and her companions travel the world on new adventures to discover. She's a researcher, actually, a lecturer and researcher for a university about fairy. And the atmospheres, the camaraderie between the characters, from the love interest to the humor and the bit of action we get in, it's a very cozy and yet adventurous fantasy. And this book just provided me with all of those kind of summery emotions, and that gave me like a summer adventure, even if I was just sitting in my garden reading these. And I really, really enjoyed this overall. It just left me very happy overall. And on a more spooky side. Not really spooky, it's not spooky, but I really enjoyed this thriller, and it was my first experience of this author, and that's why probably I also like kind of really enjoyed it, because I was like, oh, this is another author I can now follow and read all her backlog. It's Murder Road by Simone St. James. Now I love this edition, but it didn't arrive in summer, so that's why I didn't include it in the best looking books. But it didn't arrive this summer. It arrived in April, and I kind of postponed reading it because I had too many books on my TBR. But I absolutely love this edition. Feels very Scooby-Doo, and this is a thriller. It's 2024 release, and it's about this couple that just got married. They are traveling to their honeymoon destination, where they are crossing this road in USA in the middle of the woods. It's a very deserted road, and they come across a girl that's been mortally wounded. They try to save her, they can't, and they find themselves embroiled in a murder mystery. And I really enjoyed following this thriller. I think what worked very well for me was I really enjoyed these characters. I thought that the characters, for being a thriller that's a standalone, were developed enough for me to really care about them. And also I think that all the twists and turns and how fast-paced this was kept me on the edge of my seat. So just very engaging. I wanted to know what happened, and although no, this is not horror, it's not very scary, I did not mind the atmosphere. I could really immerse myself where they were at, and it was kind of spooky, to be fair. And yeah, it was just discovery after discovery, and I kept me engaged throughout. So I really liked these, and I will check out more by Simone St. James. And the last one is another fantasy, and this is Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. This is the first one in the standalones that stand between the first Law trilogy and the second part of that, which is a quartet, but there are 4 standalones in the middle. So this is the first one of a standalone, and it's a revenge story. This is about Monza Morcato. She is a very successful captain of this band of mercenaries at the very beginning of the story. She's at the top of her success. She is at the same table with the ruler of his kingdom that she has helped putting him there by conquering territories for him, and all of a sudden everything is taken from her, and miraculously she does not die, and she decides to avenge the wrong that have been done to her. And yeah, it's just a mad ride, this one. I think this one stuck with me the most throughout the summer because of how intensely ambivalent I felt about this story. I both adore his prose and the capacity that he has to make us love absolutely villain. If they are villains, they're not morally dark characters. These are villains, guys. Like, these are morally grey. I think it just goes in the realm of following the bad guys, and I appreciate so much how he can make us love these guys despite the despicable things they get up to. But at the same time, there was a part of me where there was ooh, they're very much fucked up, like this is fucked up. And I shifted from certain scenes I was gagging, was like, this is awful, I just really can't justify you anymore, to I was screaming and cheering and just rooting for this character so much to get it done. And so not many authors can take me on such a ride with their story and make me feel such an array of emotions that as Abercrombie can. So yeah, those are the highlights in terms of books. In terms of comics, and by the way, I will definitely post an update of comics wrap-ups in a few weeks. But what I would say I have enjoyed the most during the summer was my read of Vagabond. And I'm holding a random volume because actually the volumes I've read are downstairs, ready to be wrapped up. And Vagabond, the volumes I have read during the summer in particular focused on the enemy of our main protagonist. Vagabond is an historical fiction, is a reimagined historical fiction based on a true figure of this Ronin that decides to travel across Japan and challenge every dojo, is it called dojo, or basically schools of warriors, of samurais, in order for him to become the best sword master ever. And in the volumes I read throughout the summer, we focus on his arch enemy. We focus on the backstory and who his arch enemy is and how he becomes his arch enemy. That led me to have such an appreciation for Vagabond because I found myself so enthralled by the enemy story and how he grew up, and especially the mentor of his enemy. My heart broke over and over again for this man who had abandoned everything and yet found hope in this boy that had been entrusted in his care by fate. And so yeah, I just really got attached to the arch enemy, to the point that now I hope we go back to our main protagonist moving forward, because I feel like I don't know who I want to root for, because the backstory was so powerful for the enemy that now I am my devotion is divided. That happened in Berserk, for example, where initially I loved the enemy so much that throughout the series I struggled to let go of that love. So I wonder if that's going to happen with Vagabond as well. And another thing I've been doing and absolutely loving, and I'm almost done with it, so I will be finishing technically in autumn, and I will wrap up, probably do a bit of more spoilery review of the whole series once I've done it. But I'm basically there. I've got 2 more volumes to read of Doradoro, and then I'll be done with it. So I'm actually holding the next volume I need to read, which is volume 22, and I will read volume 23 in the next few days and be done with Doradoro. And I decided to stop reading Doradoro at volume 15 because I had been reading it on and off, like maybe 1 volume a month or maybe 1 volume every 2 months, and the story becomes too complex. It became too complex and I couldn't remember characters, I couldn't follow anymore. And as you had suggested, some viewers, you need to kind of binge read Doradoro, and that's what I've done. Basically, I am taking up a volume every day or every 2 days and reading a few pages every day, and has been absolutely a blast, because this becomes more dreadfully violent and full of gore, and yet we get so many answers. The plot is quite intricate. It's not like an easy plot. It has layers to it that you need to kind of understand one layer for the other one to make sense. So these experiences provided me with actually final answers that make sense in yet a very abstract, absurd way. But Doradoro is a sci-fi horror, I would say. And at the very beginning you follow Kaiman. Kaiman lives in the Hall, which is this place where humans have been relegated by sorcerers. So it's this horrible place, kind of a dystopian, barely functional place where humans have to live, and sorcerers will live in actually a good, nice place, if you want, you can call it nice. They pop in and out of the hall to use humans for their experiments. And Kaiman, our main protagonist, and his few friends, they are on a mission of finding the sorcerer who transformed Kaiman into this huge Kaiman. So someone transformed him from a human in this creature, and there is a head in his animal head that needs to find answers to who did this to me, who am I, because he can't recollect anything from his previous human life. And let's say that this is a very, very basic premise. It gets so more complex than that. This story is so much more bigger than just Kaiman. Actually, you have volumes, entire volumes without him, or almost without him completely, because the story also is not only about him. And yeah, I just adore the mind of this woman. I love horror, and this is the kind of match of, you know, combination of horrific, violent, devilish things happening on page graphically, a very interesting yet intricate plot that keeps me thinking, and characters that I just end up falling in love with. So I'm just gonna show you these because I don't want to spoil anything, and you will have no idea who this guy is unless you have read Doradoro. Now let's start with the movies, because I didn't watch many movies. I focus more on series during the summer. So, and I have a couple of movies where really I don't have anything much to say. For example, Napoleon and Operation Mincemeat. Both are true stories. Both are very well, like the actors, I really appreciate their performances, but overall I found myself quite distracted while watching the movie, which is something quite unusual for me, that made me think, okay, something didn't grab my attention, something was overall a bit missing. For Operation Mincemeat, I think there was a part of a love story that took over part of the movie, and I did not really like the love part in all of these. I found that was, I don't know, off. Overall, I think it was off. I didn't like anything of what was happening. Despite the actual movie, what it's about, which is a true story based on a British plot to fool the Germans, the Nazis, to fool them to attack a different place. The whole operation behind it was very clever, and I really loved that part of the story. But overall, the plot, the romance really took away from it. Napoleon, I don't have much to say apart from the fact that considering that this is a Ridley Scott movie and I love him as a director, I don't understand what didn't work well for me. I didn't dislike this movie, I just felt like, oh okay, I watched it once, never again, please next. And again, I think it was missing missing a lot of dialogue. It was a lot of scenes where Napoleon didn't speak much, and somehow at times I do need dialogue for me to really care about a character. Now Napoleon, I don't know him very well as a figure. I bought a book so I can read all about him, so I don't want to take away the fact that this might be actually a realistic portrait of how he was. I just found myself not connecting with the actors, or like, you know, the protagonists of this movie, in the sense that I didn't feel anything. I was just watching it for the sake of watching it. A movie I quite disliked overall, unfortunately, is Killers of the Flower Moon. I had read the book and I've read other stuff by this author, and I think sometimes this is an occasion actually where the author doesn't really work well with me, because I find myself very interested in the concept and the stories that he covers, but somehow I think his writing makes it boring, and I was very hopeful that the movie would not make it boring, something that technically speaking it shouldn't be boring, and instead I found the movie quite boring as well. It was too long, and this, you know, the only good things is the performances. They were amazing. Leonardo DiCaprio, I mean, is a guarantee, right, that you can have a quality performance. But I found just the story dragging through, and I reflected back. My brother watched it with me, and we were talking about what didn't work out well, and I think we came up with a whole hour discussion about this movie, or something of a sort, and yet I can't remember any of those points I made. So I had a lot of reasons at the time why I disliked this, but ultimately I can't even remember many of the scenes of this movie. It was just not interesting. Somehow it dragged, and somehow it didn't hold suspense, which for me, when you are doing a thriller, or you know, where you're directing, or you know, making that, somehow when you are making a thriller crime, you should have the element of, I want to be a bit on the edge of my seat. And it doesn't mean that if you got a character driven story as this was, you can't create suspense, and somehow I think the suspense wasn't there. Yeah, I was just overall disappointed. I found it quite as I found the book, to be fair. In theory, it should have worked perfectly fine, like the story was so fascinating. But when I was exposed to it and I had to go through it, I found it dreadfully boring. The only movie I actually truly loved, and I loved it. I never watched Beetlejuice, and I wanted to potentially go to the movies and watch the sequel, and I've yet to do it. So I decided, like, you know, it sounds like interesting, let me watch the original first, because I can't watch number 2 without having seen number 1. And I adored it. I thought it was perfect, and I will rewatch this over and over again. It didn't drag along more than it necessarily was. It was so original for the time that it came out. It had such original concept and characters, and the music, what these people that were possessed by this ghost at one point did, I found absolutely hilarious. Every part of it, it's probably the best part in the movie I have seen thus far, which is saying something, because I did like some of his other stuff. But I adore this. Like, that song stuck in my head, rent-free forever. I will watch this movie over and over again. I am a big fan now. I had to switch on the lights, unfortunately, but I'm gonna start with a thing that's not actually a TV series. It was just Netflix short documentary, and it's Depp versus Heard, and this is basically a documentary about the trial from, you know, Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, that basically explains what happened during the trial, the outcome of the trial, and all that happened behind the actual trial. And I think I was grateful to have this opportunity to watch this, because I had followed a bit when this was going on, and I can generally spend an hour probably or more talking about all what I've noticed or all my opinions on these, but I won't do it because one of the things that appalled me the most watching these was the entitlement of people, influencers from YouTube and social media, talking about what was happening as if I had any actual experience, without zero empathy for her. Now, I wasn't there with them, so I can't say exactly what happened at all points, but I think this documentary makes a good point of showing that she was demonized, probably to a point that it's, you know, her reputation is ruined, her career is potentially ruined, and actually she had more proofs of what she was saying than the influencers and the social media and everything wanted to make us believe. And as someone who has dabbled in this work with domestic violence before, I think that she definitely went through something, and I'm glad that this documentary makes an effort to also shows her side of things and not only his. He didn't come out well, in my opinion, which is worth nothing, but in my opinion he didn't come out well out of this documentary, and it really reminded me also that this is a very well established, one of the most famous actors in the world, who went with a woman that was 20 years younger than him, and the power imbalance there, it's immense, not only because of the age gap, but because of also how influent and rich and well known he was compared to her at the time. And so that's just in itself is problematic. It's fucked up, guys. Like the fact that he married her, the way they met, the way she was hired to do the Ram Diaries, everything of that was fucked up. People also completely dismiss the fact that this young 20 years old woman was dealing with a man that was addicted to drugs and alcohol and under the influence of drug and alcohol. And if you have any experience of dealing with people that are under the influence of any substance, you know that they can turn nasty very quickly. So the fact that people completely dismissed his behavior, the fact that there are recordings of him being at least very verbally violent and unhinged, but it's all her fault. Like, she is the demon. I was glad to be able to access this documentary and have like a documentary showing us both sides, but also not shying away from showing, you know, the proofs that they were against him. And I'm so glad that I don't engage much with that side of the internet. It really showed me, this documentary, how misogyny will never get too old. Unfortunately, I wanted to ask to some of these men, especially men, women as well, but I wanted to kind of ask them what would they think they would have done in, you know, if they were 20 years old and their husband was one of the most powerful, influential actors in Hollywood, 20 years their senior, and he was under drugs or alcohol, so completely unpredictable and clearly, at least verbally, quite aggressive. What would they have done? I'm very curious on, you know, they demonized her on the basics of what? Are you so sure she's lying on everything? On the basics of what? Yeah, I think I struggle to respect the opinion of someone who does not look at the bigger picture, who can't be a bit more neutral when it comes down to these things, but also can empathize with both sides. I think it's so easy to dehumanize someone, and I really saw that side of her being dehumanized and being ridiculed. When this documentary says, you know, this is a very sour loss for any victim of domestic violence, I do agree, because it passes on the message of, if you're powerful, you've got money, and you can, you know, have a team of people that spread stuff around social media or whether, you know, your PR team is very strong, you can bury what are the things you might have done. But anyway, let's move on to a very happy one. I watched Island 2, which is basically this survival TV show where they put together a band of girls, like it's a pop band, and I loved the girls. I loved how detailed this was, all the challenges they go through and all the talent they go through, and I can't wait for them to make their debut. They're such young, lovely girls, and I thought, oh my god, like, you know, I want to just take care of you, like, you know, you could be my daughter. Well, I mean, I'm not that old, but I just felt very caring for the girls, and I really hope that they're gonna have the best success in life. Okay, let's talk about series. So I'll just go randomly and just quickly tell you what I thought about them. So I watched Shogun. I had read the tome and then watched Shogun. It was such a faithful adaptation of a book, and I truly appreciated that side of things. I also think that the TV show has the potential to expand the story and show us rather than just telling us what, which is what the book does. And one of the biggest critique of the books is that a lot of things were brushed upon or like just mentioned, so he builds up the tension and doesn't show us the core moments, and the TV show does show us the core moments, and there is the potential of expansion, so I can see why a season 2 would make a lot of sense to me, and I am very eager whenever it comes down to watch it. I had probably watched these too soon after reading the book, and what happened is that I knew step by step what would happen, and I am someone who prefers to go into something not knowing what to expect to, because I just lose attention. It's not because it's necessarily boring, I just tend to lose a bit of attention if I already know what's gonna happen at all times. And that happened with Shogun as well. I was also having like a massive fever, so probably that didn't help, but I truly though appreciated how they made this world, the historical period, come to life. The performances, just stellar, just stellar. The actors were so perfect for their roles. Everything was just brilliant. And again, I appreciated finally seeing the action that was promised in the book and never delivered. I then watched the last season of Umbrella Academy. Now, there are a couple of things to say. I think objectively, this is not a good final season. If this was season 3, and maybe I had swapped them around, it would have made more sense for me. Because content-wise, plot-wise, this does not feel like an appropriate final season. It was rushed. Why do you have less episodes? What's wrong with people? I think it has less episodes than other seasons, but correct me if I'm wrong. But why rushing things through? I think the stakes weren't high. Like, I don't know, they didn't feel high as I felt in other seasons. So I was like, why not just put this not as the last season? Yet, I adore the Umbrella Academy, the characters and the dynamics between them. And those were present in these as well. So despite me objectively just admitting that no, the quality wasn't the best objectively, I adored this season just because I got to spend 8-ish more hours, so 60-ish, I don't know if it was 6 episodes or 8, whether with these characters, and I'm gonna miss them dearly. They just created this family that is so dysfunctional, and I just adore it. House of the Dragon, enjoyed season number 2 as well. I have put now a bit more distance between me having read the book and these, and this though is a series that I love so much because it does taste like Game of Thrones. I am someone who adored the book and yet found it deeply disturbing, just because again with Martin I get attached to his characters very quickly, and so now seeing things playing out and knowing what's gonna happen, it kind of makes me watch him but also like I don't want to see it happening. So I got these kind of contrasting emotions, yet I do like the season. I thought it was such a good season, perfectly in synchrony with the first one. Things are building up slowly, and that's what I also like. I hope they don't do a Game of Thrones move where they just go slowly, and so they make us love the characters and really feel the stakes to then rush things at the last moment. I hope they keep this pace. Finger crossed. I did watch Grey's Anatomy the last couple of seasons, so season 19 and 20. Grey's Anatomy always gets me, man. It's the only show that I can ugly cry with. No, I don't care that much about the new characters as I do the old ones, and basically we all have new characters, but it's one of those things I will keep watching until the day I die. Okay? It's one of those series that it's such a staple for me that I generally, the quality of the dialogue have to completely go out of the window for me to probably even potentially giving up on it. And I think still the dialogue, it's still good. Although it's And I don't know if Grey's Anatomy is good or not. I think it's good for the dialogue. I think it's good for some of the old characters. I'm fascinated by Meredith's side of the story. I will watch the next season. That's just the reality of it. And then I watched The Bear season 1. I am in the middle of season 2. I really enjoy this. It's not my type of TV show though. Therefore, I find myself taking gaps between one season or the other. I've gave up on, I kind of not give up, I paused season 2 3 weeks ago. I never continued on, but I will. It's one of those TV shows where it's so far out of what I usually watch that for how much I appreciate the dialogue, the script, it's not even a plot, like you follow this kind of guy trying to put together the restaurant of his brother after he passes away, and this guy has a lot of trauma due to his past job and his family situation. I adore him as a character, the dynamics, how the episodes are a bit more shorter, so they're very watchable because, you know, every episode is like 20-25 minutes long. I really appreciate what he's doing. I'm gonna take my time with it just because it's something that if I got a fantasy TV show, I will prioritize the TV show, the fantasy TV show. Not because I don't love a bear, it's just because my attention is gripped by a series that might sit in the genre that I love more. But I'm truly appreciating these, and I see why people are praising the bear so much. So season 1 was a success. I will continue on. And the last one I have for today for the TV shows, I mean, it's Merton Hall. This is one that I had watched one episode. I was like, yeah, okay, it's a bit childish. It's the story, it's enemies to lovers about a poor girl attending this prestigious school through a bursary and a rich guy, and they get in a conflict in the first episode and they hate each other, and then things develop from there. And then I somehow find myself, I was doing some journaling, and so I decided to just pick up again Merton Hall because I didn't know what to watch next, and I didn't want to start something that I really distracted me from a journal. So I just put it in the background and ended up really enjoying it. It just brought me back to when I was a teenager and I would just pull my hair out or something like this. I will watch season 2 if it comes out. I think I really like the chemistry between the two characters. That's what's keeping me intrigued. I think they've got very good chemistry. It's one of those things that I might postpone until I got nothing else to watch, in a sense, because it's not like, you know, the first thing I reach out for a romance, but I didn't mind it. I watched it. It was fun. Now, podcast wise, I've listened to a lot of audiobooks rather than listen to any podcast, but I did catch up with season 4 of Serial. And Serial is a true crime podcast. Every season they cover a different topic. In season 4 they are covering Guantanamo Bay. So they've managed to put together this true crime documentary. It's a podcast, so it's an audio documentary about people that have either survived Guantanamo Bay as prisoners and now they have been released, or people that used to work on the ground. And as always, Serial is my favorite podcast, together with a couple of others, but Serial in terms of true crime, it's my get-to. Every time a season comes out, I just binge listen to it, and this was no different. If you have any recommendation for a true crime podcast, please share them in the comments down below. I would love to hear more about different true crime podcasts that I can listen to. And game-wise, the last section of this video is I have finally played The Last of Us number 1. I've paused number 2 because I'm playing something else I'm gonna cover in a second, but I really truly appreciated the story, and I'm someone who does not do zombies. I don't do zombies, and yet I adored the relationship in this, and adored how the plot develops and the twists and turns of it. And I found also like this journey we go on, like the stakes feel so high that I was generally at times shitting myself while going through certain scenes, but I just couldn't stop playing. So I immediately then went and got number 2, and then I paused it because I started playing Baldur's Gate 3. And this is my first time playing such a game that sits in this genre, where I had to learn. There was a lot of trial and error in learning the combat style and how it worked, but it's such I'm not finished yet. I've arrived in Baldur's Gate and I've got a glitch, so I need to kind of resolve the glitch because I can't enter the actual city. So hopefully I can fix that and keep playing. But so far it was such a new type of game that sits in a genre that I'm so used to, which is fantasy. And I truly loved how the main plot, it's layered, and how many things you have to do with the main plot. Now the side quests, I'm more used to having like fantasy games have more side quests than actual main plot, so this is a bit like the opposite, and I find myself though truly appreciating these. It's one of those games where your choices influence a lot what the story is gonna go, so I'm very conflicted all the times on what to do, because I am conscious that my choices will influence the experience of the game I have. For example, I couldn't find a companion because I didn't know that she had died, and I had to resurrect her in order to have her in my team, and so I lost the whole side of the plot because one time I didn't find a place, and so a whole hour, if not more, of a plot is gone from me. And so I am a bit panicky regarding that, because I do not play again games. I get bored in playing again the games, yet this game comes with so many choices, and I've lost so many things that I've lost so many parts of the plot already, that I wonder if maybe I will replay it and have a completely different experience. But we will see. I know that people say you need to play more than once. I'm just very conscious of the fact that I never do, because yes, things will gotta be different, but also a lot of things are gonna be the same. It's a very long game, so I got all of these conflicting emotions, as I said, going on, but I am having a good time. I can only play maybe an hour or two a night, depending on what day of the week it is, but as of now, having a blast and really appreciating the complexity of the plot, and just trying to understand the lore a bit, because I am I'm new to this world. And that's it for these highlights. Sorry about the light. I turn up that I really appreciated sitting down and appreciating a lot of things of this summer that in my head a bit, because of everything that's been going on, I just dismissed or forget how much I actually had fun on certain things during the summer. I'm also working a bit toward changing some of the graphics on my channel. It's gonna be like a very minor change, but I'm trying to dedicate a bit more time to it. Next video is gonna probably be like my October TBR. I'm gonna do a TBR for this year. I've got plans for October, and if you're new, I would love for you to subscribe, stick around, join the small community, and leave a comment down below. I would love to chat with you in the comments down below. What have you watched? What would you recommend I watch next or play next, whether it's the case? I am very much into fantasy games, or like even detective games. LA Noire, it's one of my favorite games ever. Just to let you know, I might do a video about, you know, my favorite games in the future. Not that I play, like, I'm not an avid player, but I do play quite regularly. What's your best book or comics of the summer, so I can add it to my never-ending TBR. I'll see you next time, guys. Take care of yourself. Ciao!